Hello there, and welcome to my channel. Today I watched the new film, Land of Bad, and now I want to review it for you. It's an action thriller written by David Frigerio and William Eubank. Eubank directed the film, which stars Liam Hemsworth as J.J. Kinney, Russell Crowe as Reaper, and Chika Ikagwe as Nia Branson. The story is about a U.S. military operation in the Philippines. A Russian arms dealer has captured a CIA operative, and the U.S. government has sent a team of Delta operators to go and rescue him. They're accompanied by a young airman called Sergeant J.J. Kinney. After completing a dangerous infiltration, the four of them find themselves facing down a much larger force than they were briefed on. Trying to stay quiet, the four operators rely on recon from a drone operator back in the US named Reaper. When a conflict breaks out among their targets, the operators end up blowing their cover and a hurricane of bullets comes flying toward them. With the help of the drone operator and their recruit from the Air Force, they take on overwhelming odds. The cast is made up of soldiers of varying professions. These are the Delta operators, the one Air Force sergeant, the group of rowdy soldiers back in the US, and finally there is Reaper the drone pilot and his partner, Nia Branson. From Delta Squad you have Master Sergeant Sugar, Sergeant Abel, and Sergeant Bishop. They're all generic soldiers at the highest level. They're brave in the face of danger, love spitting out one-liners, and they're the best at what they do. Sergeant J.J. Kinney is a JTAC operator who is a little green when compared to the Delta operators. He's nervous about going out with the big dogs and is also a bit disorganized. Visually, the film follows two main perspectives. The first watches the operation that is ongoing in the Philippines. We see the squad do an airdrop and then wander around in the jungle for a bit before finding a military compound where most of the action takes place. The second perspective follows Reaper back in the US. He works on a military base and is constantly coming into conflict with the other soldiers stationed there. We see him and Bronson dealing with this situation while supporting Kinney and the squad. Once the operation kicks off, there is a good bit of action in the form of gunfights, explosions, and eventually a few close-quarter fights with knives and machetes. Sound-wise, they used an original song or two, a lot of instrumentals, and a ton of ambient noise. The original song comes early and is just a bit of entertainment. The instrumentals appear during big moments to try and hype up the action, and what you hear is generally a string section with some drums or piano on top. There is also a lot of dramatic wailing and echoing. The ambient noise is usually gunfire, explosions, and the various sounds of battle that overwhelm everything else. Okay, so how was it? The writing was filled with dumb cliché one-liners. The characters were boring stereotypes, and they explained almost nothing about what was going on. The story takes a while to get going, and then once things kick off, there's just a bunch of badly explained moments and big plot holes. The action does get to be somewhat exciting. There are a lot of brutal kills and big explosions, but the journey itself doesn't hold any meaning. You don't know why they're there, you don't get to know any of the characters, and the ones you do get some insight into are stereotypes. It's another bland military story with the same boring characters you've seen since the 1980s. Even the villains are generic Muslim terrorists. The cast does what they can with the dialogue, but it is literally all cheesy one-liners. They deliver them in monotone action hero voices and do their best to look tough while holding a gun and hiking through the woods. No one's performance stands out. There isn't enough emotion or even real dialogue to make any of these characters memorable. The closest the film gets is when one of the villain characters is killed off early on. The visual journey was dark, shaky, and boring outside of the combat sequences. They spend a lot of time wandering through the woods, trading one-liners, and trying to one-up one another. They also waste a lot of screen time cutting back and forth between Reaper at the base and the mission. Cutting away from the jungle to the air-conditioned office killed the tension every single time. The action was well done though, and contained a lot of brutal kills. Once the action got rolling, there were a lot of explosions, lots of great knife kills, and all of it had a good amount of impact. The final fight between Kinney and the terrorist leader was also a pretty awesome moment. Sound-wise, the film fails on both fronts. There's almost no music throughout the film, and the music that is there is so unnoticeable that it might as well not be. It comes in quietly, has almost no effect on the scenery, and the songs are incredibly generic. They use two tones of music throughout the entire film, and they equate to danger and tragedy. After a while, what you do notice becomes bland and even more boring. Overall, Land of Bad was just a bad film. It's standard military slop written by someone who has little to no idea what actually happens on these types of missions or how the US military operates. There are big holes in the story and a lot of generic cliches. If you want to torture yourself, you could try this out. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 3 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.